Welcome to Sports Talk with Steve Jones, the daily talk show with the voice of Penn State football and men's basketball. You never know what special guest may stop on by any given day. Now here's the man of the hour, Mr. Steve Jones.
Yo. Let's talk Syracuse basketball. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding you.
At least starting on the high of the Saints having an actual draft pick we could do something with this year.
No.
Be better for me.
We can wait on that. So we'll start with this. This is a meeting in Dallas today. It's the college football playoff. Expect the you have to have all 10 conference commissioners and Pete Bavacqua, the athletic director at Notre Dame. All 11 need to agree on any change to the format this year.
All or none.
And if it's a 10-1 vote, it doesn't pass. That's the way the rules were under the existing contract. Up for debate today should be something I think that will pass, and that is seeding 1 through 12 instead of giving the top 4 seeds to conference champions that are automatic qualifiers. To me, being the conference champion and getting you an automatic bid in is that's the reward for winning it. You automatically get in. Clemson's a great example. Clemson doesn't beat SMU in the ACC championship game. They don't get in.
No.
Okay, Boise State doesn't beat UNLV. They don't get in. I think Arizona State doesn't win its game. Okay, they don't get in. I think they played Iowa State. Right, they don't get in.
Yeah.
Right, so you have now Georgia would have gotten in no matter what. Oregon was going to get in no matter what. So,
but it signifies it actually orders it 1 to 12.
It should be 1 to 12. Now, it's going to be in April when they have a group meeting again, and then the May meeting I think is the one where the 14 with the automatic qualifiers, and because they're talking about 26 and beyond, the power shifts to the Big Ten and the SEC as to how this is constructed.
So we have about a month and a half till we can actually see what the results of that are going to be, basically.
Right. And it's the Big Ten and the SEC that have more power in it. And starting in 26, they'll get more money out of it, 58%, split 29% apiece between the two of them. And then the ACC will get 17%, minus the Syracuse cut. And what?
Nothing.
The ACC will get 17%, Big 12 15%, Notre Dame gets 1%, Group of 5 gets 9%.
Yeah.
So that's how it's going to play out. Starting in 26. So the only thing they can vote on really today deals with the 25 into the January 26 playoff. That's all they can vote on this time through.
Yeah.
You're going to have to make a decision here at some point. I realize there are contracts involved because I believe who did the Big Ten championship game this year? Was it Fox?
I believe it was Fox.
Because then I think next year it goes, at some point CBS gets one, at some point NBC gets one.
This year was 2024 was CBS.
CBS, okay.
And then it was Brad Nessler, Gary Danielson.
Yeah, and then Fox is going to get it in this year, and I think NBC gets it the year after.
Yeah.
Now you do have these contracts in place for that. The question is going to be, what do you do with it? And Pat Kraft yesterday talked about, and this is something I have talked about over and over again, so this is not going to be anything groundbreaking. But the calendar for college football stinks.
What?
Okay. Now, the college basketball calendar works very well. Now, again, it's the time of the year that does come into play here. And even though college basketball and or wrestling or whatever happen to be 2-semester sports, the timing works out great. So, in other words, you can have your early signing date the second Wednesday of November. Great. You can play your season. Great. Okay? Then when you're done with your season, all right, now you can get into the workout session. Or Kyle F is a great point guard. Kyle F wants to explore the NBA draft. He can put his name into the NBA draft. He can go and work out at the Combine or the G League Combine, one of the two in Chicago, and then can do individual workouts with as many teams that ask, could be 4, 5, whatever, get feedback. Decide after everything, especially if you're in the G League Combine, right, to say, you know what, I'm going to go back to school for another year. You don't lose your eligibility. You get your workouts in. You get the feedback. They tell you, hey, look, this is where you need to be better. You need to work on this element of your game, whatever it may be. You can go back to either said school or go into the transfer portal, whatever you want to do. Most times you go back to said school.
Yeah.
Right? And that calendar works out beautifully. The college football calendar is a mess.
Mess is putting it nicely.
All right, and let's start with this particular week, the Combine. It's not as if, now it wouldn't happen, so let's take one that won't happen. Like Abdul Carter is going to work out for everybody, and then he's going to do individual workouts and the whole thing. You know, and I'm going to decide I'm going to go back to Penn State.
No.
Right? You can't do that. Once you declare for the draft, you're in. You can't go back. There's like a week. There's like
a 1 week window.
1 week window where you put your name in. You got until X day to pull your name out.
Carson Beck.
Right?
Sorry.
Which he did.
Something in my throat.
Which he did. He went to Miami. But look, he's hurt. There's no way he's getting drafted.
Yeah, I agree.
He's not going to get drafted. He made the right move, right? You know, the whole thing. So he's going to stay in school and he's going to go to Miami. For him, long term, for his future, it's the smartest thing he could do. But once you commit, there's no working out for people, getting feedback and then going back and using it like you can with basketball. No. Once you're in, you're in. The calendar when it comes to the portal is a mess. It's a complete mess. You know, you would think that you'd have enough, quote, university minds out there that could think their way through this thing, right, that haven't been able to come up with anything in the last 3 years that really makes sense. When they do the early signing period, continues to make no sense. Right? Basketball's giving you a model. Guess what? If the model failed, don't use it. But here's the issue. For over 30 years, the model has worked. Use it. If they're going to do their signing day the second Wednesday of November, which is now it's based, it used to be like just before the start of the season. Now it's like you're maybe a game or two in. Okay. That's fine. Okay.
Yeah.
Do it the first Wednesday in August with a late signing period in February for anybody who doesn't want to sign. Because the vast majority of guys, for example, that Penn State gets, okay?
Yeah.
Now, if a coach is turned loose,
that's why you give until February.
right?
Because that
Now
way,
you have the late signing period in February, and if you are somebody of any note or talent, people are going to want you.
so me, maybe not Jerry Valeri or Jason Lord.
Oh my goodness! I mean, look, when on March 28th when they do Pro Day, okay, and they're done running the 40s, and Jerry and Jason at the end of the Pro Day are still in the midst of running their 40. To an empty room.
Yeah.
Right? Now, Abdul Carter
Is not
with
going
the shoulders, not going to work out. It's smart. Look, his stock is not going anywhere.
He is
Right.
he is not going to fall below at absolute worst 4.
Right. I mean, so he's okay.
Yeah.
He'll come here on the 28th, buy himself another month, work out here. He'll do Abdul Carter things that I've watched Abdul Carter do for 3 years, and everybody will go, okay, we're fine.
My favorite
Right.
thing was, I forget who it was, what NFL person that was talking about this with Rich Eisen, was like, yeah, people love Abdul Carter and he's a top prospect because he did things against Notre Dame with one arm most players can't do with they had 3 or 4 arms.
Right.
And he did it with one arm with basically he only had so much range of motion.
The only time
Crazy.
The only time it really cost him was the fumble at the end of the first half. If he has both arms, Penn State has the ball, and I think
Oh, yeah.
That might be the psychological blow to Notre Dame going into the locker room.
But
Okay, that aside.
The fact that he did all of that with one arm is still just...
Right. and the fact is, I want to draft him more than ever because he wanted to play in that game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He did not hold himself out. He wanted to play in that game.
Yeah.
And he played. And to me, if I'm an NFL general manager or I'm a coach, that tells me everything because the massive talent jumps out to you on the video. That tells me about his character. Right? I watch this guy after practice every day, especially the past year, and do extra work after practice, working on his craft, how to use his hands, how to get that step. He'd work with Torrance Brown. He'd work with Deion Barnes. Look, he is, if some scout or general manager asked me a question about him, I said, look, you want a guy that's going to work? This guy will work for you. I said, and the Orange Bowl tells you everything. He played the game because his team needed him to play the game, and he did. Skipping the combine, who cares? The combine, to me, is mostly for people trying to somehow get themselves out of the third day to the second day. To me, that's what it's almost all about. The quarterback's not working out, irrelevant. I mean, they need to show up and get through the interview part of it. Okay,
That's what Shador's doing, I believe. I think Cam Ward might be throwing. I'm not sure.
It doesn't matter. Who cares if you're throwing at it? What? Okay.
Yeah.
And even pro days don't mean much. Okay. You want to know two people who had two of the worst pro days you could possibly ask for? That people walked away and went, "Oh my God." Lamar Jackson and Peyton Manning. Well, guess what? They're both on their way to the Hall of Fame. Okay. I mean, that tells you everything. Like, okay, what you had? Peyton Manning's pro day was not good.
No.
Okay, Lamar Jackson's pro day was not good.
You know who?
Guess what? Everybody would want him.
You know who had a great pro day, by the way, and who got drafted second overall in a draft?
Mitchell Trubisky.
Zach Wilson.
It was Zach.
He threw a 60-yard throw off his back foot, and he was touted as the greatest thing since sliced bread.
Everybody talks about that. I watched the games. And in watching the games, I was like, I don't know. I don't see it. Yeah. And the one that really got me was, because of that particular year, was BYU played that game in Coastal Carolina. I didn't think he was good at all.
No.
Well, Coastal Carolina, no offense, that is not the Green Bay Packers defense. No. They may wear teal, but it's not the Packers defense. And so this pro day stuff, it's really important on pro day. That you go out and you're somebody that's trying to get yourself from free agent to third day or third day to second. You rarely do anything that goes, hey, second, he's a first-round pick. Now, if you're around the neighborhood of a first-round pick, you're going to stay in the neighborhood of a first-round pick. It's all based on what people need at that point. Like, look at Quinyon Mitchell of Toledo. Okay? Well, the Eagles didn't have to do anything to get him because people in front of him had all these other needs. Their need was to get a corner, and they just kind of sat there and waited till it was finally their turn because nobody else was drafting corners.
Yeah.
So they got him. Same thing with Cooper DeJean in the second round.
Yeah.
So the combine thing, the most exciting thing about the combine is when Rich Eisen runs his 40 for St. Jude.
Yes.
Which is a great thing that he does. Not a good thing. It's a great thing. It raises a lot of money. We always have referred to it as the Underwear Olympics. And, we make a big deal out of everything. And, for example, I talked to Rob King yesterday, who does the Steelers games. And Rob was driving out to the Combine and to take a look at guys. Well, that's great because a lot of this, because we focus so much in the first round, but it's all those other rounds that make a difference.
It's the third rounders, fourth rounders, the Jason Kelce's of the world who are drafted in the third, I believe. Like, it's those guys who matter and who make a difference on a team.
Now this is way back. You're going back 40 plus years here. But that draft for the Steelers got Stallworth. They got Mike Webster. They got
not too bad.
Every time you turned around, they were drafting a Hall of Fame guy. I think Lynn Swann may have been their first pick, but but that's the one that everybody's dramatic, excited about. I mean, look at this past year with the Steelers. I mean, Zach Frazier was a second-round pick. Guess what? He was the stalwart on the offensive line. The first-round pick played one game. Now, I think he's going to be a good player. He just has to be healthy. But that's what this is all about. This is not like your team, the Saints. What will they do at quarterback? Because there's a lot of talk they're not going to keep Derek Carr. Well, what are they going to do at quarterback? Will they sign somebody? Free agency always sets up your draft anyway. Yeah. So in other words, the Eagles had signed 3 corners in free agency last year. They may not have drafted Quinyon Mitchell.
A lot of this is them getting just an up-close look at someone that they can't otherwise see, being able to do the medicals, because that is something that is, of course,
medicals are important.
Big piece of it. And then the third party said the interviews, which is what matters a lot because it tells you about someone's character, and you can kind of you can talk to them. Versus during the season, you kind of don't have that ability almost at all. So it's just you get an actual chance to sit down and meet a human being.
So here's the only issue I have with the interview part is this. There are some people that are not very good at interviewing people. I think people are going to say aren't very good at being interviewed. No, it's the other way around. Yes. There are some people that just ask some of the stupidest questions on the face of the earth, where you sit back and go, what? Just let the people who are making the decision ask the questions. And if you have a good question, ask it. Don't just ask random questions. And that's one of the problems that you have in some of these interviews. Certain random questions are asked, and like the people who are asked the questions are looking around like, what does that have to do with football?
People are like, if you could rob a bank, how would you do it? And it's like, what? Why is that a question?
It's not a question.
The fact that those are the questions being asked is like, what?
Right.
It should be a conversation.
Right. It doesn't have to do with anything. I mean, I know Herb Brooks, for example, in the 1980 Olympic team, had him take a test. The whole thing, and one of the famous things was Jimmy Craig, the goalie, didn't take the test, right? And he was going to bench him after the 10-3 loss to the Soviet Union in Madison Square Garden. He says, is this all about the fact I wouldn't take the test? He goes, no. He says, the guy I want is the guy that wouldn't take the test. You went, oh. All right. So that's what this is about. So Abdul Carter's making the right decision. Tyler Warren's draft status is not going to change no matter what happens here. It's going to be some other guys that need to showcase themselves, help themselves out, get themselves drafted on a second day, get themselves drafted on the third day, and put themselves in a position to make a team. And so I feel like the March 28th one, if you're a player for Penn State that's invited to both the Combine and can then work out again on the 28th, go ahead and do it. For example, Micah Parsons and Odafe Oweh did not run in Indianapolis, but they ran here. And I was standing there that day as they both went flying by, and I went, I think they're going to get a couple first rounders out of this. I mean, you could just see it. And it just, little things like that clinch a thought process. Right? As to what people see. And he also, and there's so much video on everybody today that you should have a pretty good idea what your board looks like. Now, does it become more difficult on day 2 when you're sitting there and you have to make that third round pick and there's guys off the board you wanted?
But then you've got those 2 guys you got to see at one of these combines or pro days. Like, you know what? I liked what I saw out of him. Maybe it wasn't let's say film on player A and player B is the same.
Sure.
And I see both of them work out a little bit. And I'm like, you know what? I kind of liked more what I saw from player A. I think he'd translate better to what we want to do. We take him because we got to at least see him up close, like with the other guy, but we like his makeup more for us.
Right. Are there a lot of things like, how high you jump? I mean, these are all measurements. And and Penn State does its own combine with the players every year. And there's like today was agility. They do a lot of agility stuff. And you probably have seen the tweets of who the positional winners were. To me, the single most significant one was Zariah Fisher at defensive end. Zariah this is now knee injury number 2 he's had to come back from. I thought at the end of last year, he was moving really well. right? To see him come out, and he goes out and he has a good day like he had this morning. Yeah, that's one. And now the whole thing is, tomorrow will be a day of recovery. Then they've got to go out and do it again on Thursday. But, I mean, that was of all of them. So we've gone through the college football playoff. We talked about the combine. Abdul Carter's not going to work at the combine. That's perfectly fine. Yeah. I mean,
he's sitting there. He's going to get his name called real early in Green Bay this year, the draft?
Yeah, Green Bay. Yeah, Green Bay. Next year's in Pittsburgh. I can tell you're going to go. Here's your opportunity to meet Kellen Moore.
Of course. My favorite person in the world. Hey, he's the head coach of my team.
But in all seriousness, you can get yourself a press pass and go.
Oh, I know. It's.
Are you going to?
I'm going to attempt it, yes.
Good.
I don't see why not. I think it'd be fun. It'd be fun to go, cover it.
Am I going?
If you'd like to go, you're welcome to join me. I'll be your entourage.
No.
You know who would probably go and be the coolest person there, though?
Oh, man. Moeller.
No, it's not who I was thinking.
Moeller. Moeller.
I was thinking the number one guy who I'd be following him around with like a umbrella, holding it over him, making sure he's good to go, is Dick Girardi.
He wouldn't go.
He's too cool.
Right? That is true. That is true. I'll tell you a story about that after the show.
But
really, really good story. You'll like it a lot. But
before we move off the draft combine and the draft and all these things,
Tottenham.
I
just wanted to say it. Ha ha.
The last piece of the weekend, there's two pieces I want to discuss. One of them is it isn't just draft combine stuff that happens this weekend. It's also you get every single NFL team is in the same building at the same time. And this is where...
Are we sure? No, I'm seriously, because like the Rams have skipped this. There have been a couple teams that started skipping this.
But this is where most teams are in the building at the same time, and this is where deals are discussed. There's chat about certain players. Of course, the big one right now, speaking of the Rams, Matthew Stafford. It's what the deal going to be with him this year.
Yeah, is it March 11th?
March 11th.
That's the day? Okay.
Yeah. But there are things that are going to get discussed that can't just be discussed over the phone, or could be, but you'd rather have them in conversation in person. You can talk things out, as we've seen with the NBA. Talking things out in person in a cafe is a pretty good way to get business done. So that's going to go on. And lastly is mock draft. The only mock draft I kind of will look at, because I think it's the one that I pay too much attention to, is Daniel Jeremiah's. I think he does the best job. I think he's pretty accurate, and he kind of doesn't take random shots, and he isn't just like, oh, Shador and Cam Ward are going 1-2 because quarterback. It's like, no, he looks at the player themselves. And he currently has Abdul Carter mocked first overall to the Titans. And then he's also got, going down a little lower, Tyler Warren staying in the area, going to the New York Jets in the first round.
I've seen a lot of Tyler Warren with the Colts at 14. Yeah. Look, to me, especially the first 15 picks are absolutely about need.
Yeah.
And then once you get past 15, you'll have a mixture of need versus, you know what, who's the best player on the board.
Yeah.
Ashton Genty, by the way, is not going to work out either.
No, and he is currently slated in Daniel Jeremiah's mock draft to be drafted to the Pittsburgh Steelers at 21. Because they, of course, are losing Najee Harris, or he's a free agent at least.
Well, they're not going to pick. They're not picking up his additional year. Okay, the Steelers don't want him back.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Ashton Genty, and then
this is where Genty. Okay, Genty. There's going to be a lot of talk about the season Genty just had, and he combined for over 2,700 yards from the line of scrimmage, 2,600 of it rushing. To me, it's his junior year. I don't know. Is he a senior?
Or sophomore year.
His sophomore year. That is a bigger story than this past year. Oh, how can you say that? Because he was one of the top receivers on the team. That tells me as a running back, that season shows me he's not just a one-trick running back pony.
Yeah.
Right? It tells you he's got a lot more around him. Now, the one area I can't evaluate is what kind of blocker he is in pass protection. I know I looked at the videos, but on the videos, he's carrying the ball so often, and their pass game was with Malinowski was so catch, boom, first read. I mean, like everything is a first read. Catch, first read. Catch, first read. So it's not like Nicholas Singleton and Katron Allen who have to stick their nose in there and pick up a blitz. You know, the way Saquon Barkley has to stick his nose in there. Because Miles Sanders got to be very good at it, but it took him a long time to work on it. That's the one area about Genty I can't tell because their passing game is so, for the most part, simple.
Yeah. It didn't ask him to do that as often as it does Katron and Nick.
Right. I mean, it's not as intricate. There's not a lot of things in their pass game don't take time to develop.
The Boise State system was that if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And if you're giving Nash Genty the ball.
They lost one game all year with this. And the one game was a tight loss at Oregon.
Yeah.
Okay? I mean, Penn State's the only one that kind of went in and just flat out beat them. And he's a big part of it. I'm just saying that's the part I couldn't see because of their style of passing game didn't mean he had to do a lot of that. They also didn't, but the year before, he was a part of the passing game. He caught the ball a lot. And I think, that's going to be invaluable for people wondering about what are his hands like, so forth. They did have him return a couple of kickoffs this year. But for the most part, he stayed away from that. He did more of that early in his career, which is fine. I mean, that's a lot of guys early in their career. See, James believes putting your best guy back there. That's why Barkley returned kickoffs. That's why Nicholas Singleton returns kickoffs. They're a big believer in okay.
Singleton took 100 yards in 2022, right?
Against Rutgers. He had the 66-yarder against Maryland and kind of broke the game open in the regular season finale. So
Alvin Kamara was a saint in his rookie year. That's what he did is he returned punts and ran the ball, by the way. And then, spoiler, he became an incredible NFL player. Well, he was put back there because he was great at what he did.
But again, him returning punts tells you everything. It's exponentially more difficult to return a punt to catch it than it is to catch a kickoff. And because of the spin of the ball, and it tells you that's why Kamara has been a legitimately outstanding receiver in the NFL because he's got great hands.
And he's got great balance, which is something that a lot of people don't take into account with a lot of guys. The one guy who's currently being compared to him in terms of his balance is Genty. Because Genty just doesn't go down.
Right.
And it's not like he's running through guys all the time. It's because he's just not letting his feet fall. Like he is keeping himself upright.
I mean, there'll be some teams that might shy away from him after watching the Penn State game because the Penn State game, they were all over him and he was not breaking tackles. All right. So one quick note. I made fun of the Tottenham thing. Right, here's the reason why. Tottenham put out a directive that they do not want to be known as Tottenham. They want to be. If you're referring to them, they have to be either called the Spurs,
sure,
Tottenham Hotspurs,
sure,
or I think the Tottenham
There is a dog in the building right now.
Tottenham Football Club.
See,
something like that.
You say this. The problem I have here is Tottenham don't win anything. So I don't care.
Oh, you're just so cruel.
Hey, they are the team I hate most of all. I don't hate many things. I hate Tottenham. So I will give it to them. You know what certain teams, I guess, hate, Steve, in the NFL? The Tush push. And the Green Bay Packers put forward the proposal to ban the quote-unquote Tush push. The brotherly shove, whatever you want to dub it. I believe what was the name used by the Penn State crew, by the social media account? I forget exactly what it was. There was some fun name used here in Happy Valley by the Penn State crew for the Tush push. But the point is, Packers want to get rid of it. Give me your thoughts.
Do I think it's a legal play? Yes. Do I like the play? No. But I wouldn't vote to get rid of it. So the best person I ever saw run the quarterback sneak, the pure quarterback sneak, was Tom Brady.
Yeah.
He just had a knack for it. Plus, they blocked it really well. But he had a real knack for it as to where to go, how to get his body in there.
Yeah.
Right? And people say, well, watch how Hurts runs it. Hurts doesn't run anything. I mean, he gets in there. His offensive line are as low as gophers. They push him from behind, and he's powerfully built to begin with. I mean, so and that makes it difficult to bring down. If you notice, Kansas City doesn't do it. There was a game at Cleveland. It was a night game. I don't know if it was it may have been a Thursday night game. This is years ago, and they ran it with Mahomes, quarterback sneak. Mahomes got hurt. He was down by the goal line, and he was out. For a few games. They haven't run it since. So not everybody runs it. There is a lot of risk in running it. And the tush push, there's a lot of risk in running it because, look, there's a lot of pushing, shoving, and belting as you go in and do this. There's a lot of
bodies going like this.
Right. And you also can't tell 9 times out of 10 where the ball actually is. There's so many bodies there. Well, we're going to take a look at it. I mean, I would be more concerned about a rule of putting a chip in each end of the football and using laser technology as to where the first down is before I do stuff like this. I'm not worried about it. The kickoff rule needs to change back. I can't stand that rule. It just looks and seems stupid. I don't like it. And I don't quite get what the goals of the NFL happen to be. Right? 1 second they're telling you they're all about player safety. The next second they put this rule in because they think it's going to promote more returns. Well, hold on here. I thought you didn't want the contact on the returns. I mean, make up your mind. I mean, the NFL rule on that I don't like. I'd be more in favor of getting rid of that before I get rid of this play. I mean, the play is a play. I'm, ever since the Matt Leinart play against Green Bay or against Notre Dame when Reggie Bush pushed him into the end zone, that is, you should be allowed to do that. Now everybody's doing it. They're pushing in the open field. They're pushing in the.
May I make a case for why this is the stupidest thing that could happen?
Well, now, first of all, I don't blame Green Bay for bringing it up. Let's vote on it. I mean, you should be allowed to vote on it.
It is not going to pass, by the way. I'm fairly confident it's going to still be a play and allowed. But my feeling here is because everyone's reaction is like everyone's trying to run it themselves. No one does well with it. Do you know why that is? Because, spoiler, the Eagles have a humongous offensive line. Landon Dickerson, 6'6", 330.
Yeah.
Mekhi Becton, 6'7", 360. Lane Johnson, 6'6", 320. Jordan Mailata, 6'8", 360. Cam Jurgens, 6'3", 303 is the smallest guy. By the way, Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley can squat like 600, 800 pounds.
Right.
So they're both ridiculously powerful lower body human beings. You are trying to stop all of them from going in the same direction at the same time. Like, if they had Drew Brees, it ain't going to work because Drew Brees can't do that. Right. If they had someone who wasn't built like Jalen Hurts is.
And Mahomes isn't built like Jalen Hurts. That's why they don't sneak the ball.
Yeah. Like, it works. We've seen it work a little bit for the Bills because Josh Allen is built and he's strong.
But again,
and he's
a little
big guy.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Not always.
And they're also like they are trained by Jeff Stoutland to be a great offensive line. They're the best in the league. And so, of course, they're going to be better at stuff like that.
It's the way they run it. They keep everybody low. The Eagles' offensive line is one of the top 5 in the league.
Yeah. They have the perfect recipe to run this play. That's just what it is.
And that's just the way it is. They're also successful, so whenever somebody's successful, people want to take away an advantage. So I don't blame Green Bay for voting on it. There's nothing wrong with proposing it. So I was Eagles fans who just get like you gotta bag the little brother thing. Philadelphia, you gotta bag the little brother thing.
Yeah,
you're the best team in the league. Act like it. Other people are bring up votes. Oh, this because excuse me, it's okay to vote on it.
Yeah,
it's okay. right? It's not going to pass. So what do you care?
Jeff Larry's going to walk in that building and be like, oh, you want to pass the thing that got us this ring right here?
Right. It's only part of the formula. For goodness sakes, they were throwing the ball over the place. Saquon Barkley was
incredible.
When you got 12 runs of 60 yards or better, I'm sorry, those aren't tush push plays. Right? You want to know why the tush push is so successful? Because Philadelphia has been so successful on first and second down.
If they get it within 2 yards, they can run the tush push. It's part of the whole thing. Like,
I mean, you're talking about these tush pushes are all third down at a yard or fourth down at a yard. If you were better defensively on first and second down against them, they can't run the play.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you got to look at the whole thing. You just can't be the person that sits there, oh, it's all about this play. It's like, no, if you were better on first and second down, you eliminate the possibility of the play. The reason that they run it as often as they do is because they have 3rd and 1 or 4th and 1.
You're right.
I mean, that's the reason why they're in a position to do it. They're not running it on 3rd down and 10. They're not running it on 3rd and 5. Come on. That's the bottom line. You watch when the Eagles are driving the ball. Yeah, they may dump, Barkley may run it for 5-6 yards. Next play may be a simple out for 3 yards, and it's 3rd down and 1. Okay. Well, now it's 3rd and 1. Now I may try to do something downfield because on 4th and 1 I'm going to do this play. Right? If you were better on first and second down, you wouldn't be in that position. Right, and that's what it comes down to. So Green Bay, there's nothing wrong with Green Bay proposing it. I would prefer somebody propose changing the kickoff back.
I believe it is a part of there is multiple proposals on there. I think that is one of them.
And if you in the NFL, if you want to change it back and you want to promote returns, move the kickoff back where it was for a few years to the 30-yard line.
Make it so the ball doesn't go out of the end zone every single time.
Right. Now, if you want safety, keep it where it is and just do the touchback thing. Fine. If you want to promote some returns, move it back to the 30. The extra 5 yards makes a difference because once you get past midseason, legs get a little more tired. They're not going to drive the ball as far, and it's as simple as that.
Yeah.
I mean, I would rather see something like that, and then you've got to incorporate more technology in the game. We've got too many times where the Buffalo-Kansas City game where one guy comes running in from the far side and he's got the ball here, and the guy coming in from the near side's got the ball a quarter yard back and it's not a first down. Well, they're not on the same page. Okay? Well, technology. They talked about lasers years ago on the 1st and 10 lines. Okay. Well, put it, microchip the ball on each end. Right? Have them activated. It's going to tell you where it is. Where's the ball? And it'll tell you whether it crossed the mythical laser line or not. I mean, there's got to be something in technology where we made so many advances where you can do that now. I get baffled sometimes by what they want to do. The NBA agent Jim Tanner's been hired by North Carolina basketball to be their general manager. Hubert Davis said the old model for Carolina basketball just doesn't work. So let's talk about. I want to talk about that for a moment because I know you want to talk about soccer. Right?
I actually want to discuss college basketball, but we'll do that.
We'll get that in a second. Well, this is a college basketball related note, but it's in general college football, college basketball. Look, we all know that after April, in all likelihood, the $20.5 million comes into play. Now, it's only $20.5 million for the upcoming year. It's going to go up 4%. There's an escalator every year, so that'll be about another $1 million, like the year after, 21.5, somewhere in there. Okay. And Pat Kraft talked yesterday. He said, obviously, football, men's and women's basketball, wrestling, women's volleyball, maybe women's soccer, they'll be the beneficiaries in all likelihood here at Penn State. Okay. And the general manager part of it came up. Penn State football has a general manager, and that is Andy Frank. And this is a role, James has had this role for Andy Frank for a long time. So James has always been ahead of the curve having somebody like that there. Andy Frank is, first of all, he's a Princeton grad. I think in engineering, I believe.
Smart dude.
Right. No, I was kidding Andy. I says, well, why is it a Princeton guy with a degree in engineering? His boss is from East Stroudsburg. No.
Problem is he went to college in Jersey, but
Right.
whatever.
That's right. But and James has been way ahead of the curve in doing this.
Mm-hmm.
So what do? Well, who do you think's taking a look at all the portal possibilities? Right, Andy and his staff, Kenny Sanders and Alan Zamitis. I can go through a long list of people that are doing this, right? Who do you think's going through all the recruiting and setting up the camps and everything like that? Andy and those guys are doing that. That's what you're already doing. Mm-hmm. You have some of these general managers that are being hired by these schools, and they're in charge of talent acquisition. Mm-hmm. You can't have that. Mm-mm. I think that's a model that is not going to work. Mm-hmm. Where, to me, on the college level, your coaching staff has to be directly involved in every decision, and your head coach has to make the final decision of whether we offer him or not. Mm-hmm. Right? And in both football and basketball. But some of these places are bringing in general managers, and their job is all talent acquisition. Mm-hmm. No, that's not how it works. To me, that's not how it works, because college sports is still a relationship business. Mm-hmm. Okay? I need to know as the head coach. And James is, look, like I said, James already has Andy in place. What they need is a capologist. Mm-hmm. Okay? All right, I'll talk about that in a second. But that's what you need, somebody that is in charge of portal and recruiting, to then say, these are the people we've identified. Mm-hmm. Coach, which ones do you like? Which ones do your staff like? Here are all the options. That, to me, is their job.
Yeah.
To go through the weeds and say, we've identified these people here. Which ones do you think we should talk to? Mm-hmm. Here are the videos.
Yeah.
Take a long look at them. Then we'll talk about it. And then you, as the head coach, in conjunction with your assistants and analysts, make the decision about, we want to recruit X, Y, and Z. Mm-hmm. Okay? We'll put A and B on the back burner. Mm-hmm. Right? And then go from there. Okay? Yeah. And that, okay, because when you go out and recruit, it's a Terry Smith building a relationship with somebody over a couple of years. When you go out and go through the portal, a lot of times it's somebody that you didn't get the first time. Mm-hmm. Okay? Nolan Rucci, didn't get him the first time. Julian Fleming, didn't get him the first time. But guess what? You maintain a relationship. Okay? They both came in. Suddenly in the fourth quarter against USC, Julian Fleming's making 2 fourth-down catches for you. Suddenly at the end of the season, Nolan Rucci is starting at your right tackle spot, making plays for you left and right, right? Because they kept relationships with them along the way. It's a relationship business. It is not a blind, I don't know him. Boy, I looked at the tape. What a great talent. Well, there are a lot of great talents out there that are not great fits.
You know what program has done, I think, the GM search the best and has had the best success, I think, so far of it? St. Bonaventure.
I thought you were going to bring up St. Bonaventure, but I don't think that there's been no impact there. Zero. He just started the job in the summertime.
I know, but
he just started the job in the summertime. The team was already in place.
My point isn't the talent portion of it. It is that he is handling the rest of it. He is handling the relationship aspect. He's handling getting them into these different deals with different companies, getting them money, more financial help, more NIL money. Like, that is what.
Well, that to me that to me, that's the job.
Yeah.
Okay. But if you're going to put him in charge of talent acquisition, Mark should be Mark Schmidt. Sorry.
Yeah.
I apologize. People I know, I'm sorry about that, because Mark was an assistant coach here. Mark's talent acquisition and his coaching staff. Woj.
He's handling the relationships because he knows.
Mark has to handle the relationships.
My point is with Woj knows every human being.
He can know every human being. Okay, he can know every human being, but he's not going to be the one on the court with the human being. The coach is. The coach has to be the one, along with the assistant, that has that bond with the player to know what they're doing, how they're coaching him. Woj's job is to go find guys that fit St. Bonaventure and say to Mark, okay, these are the people I've identified I think we can get. Okay? And they can do it together, but the head coach has got to be in there.
Yeah.
The assistant coach who does a heavy load has to be there. The assistant coach has to be the one going to the game and doing the evaluation. They all have to go to the AAU and do the evaluation, along with Woj. Woj can be there doing evaluations as well. But in the end, if I'm going to coach them, I've got to know them.
Yeah.
If I'm going to coach them, I need to know them. Right? Is he a better visual learner? Is he a better spoken learner? Okay? Is he a better demonstration learner? I've got to figure all that out, and I can figure out some of that in the recruiting process. What's his family like? What's his family like? Right? Does he have the stability in the household? Right? A mom or a grandmother that's pushing the education part of it or whatever, or a two-parent household where they've got the stability of, right? And when you talk to them, they're reasonable about what the college experience is like. Or am I dealing with a prima donna family with a prima donna dad? You know, am I dealing with the Hollywood parent? I mean, what am I dealing with? Yes. See, these are all things you've got to figure out. You can't just sit there and look at a tape and go, yep, that's a guy we need to get. Okay, well, no, there's much more I need to know, right? And that's why you have to develop some sort of relationship with them, because if you don't, then you get into a situation where like, the dad calls me at 6:30 every morning. He's not getting enough shots. Oh, God, we won the game last night. What are we doing here?
Crazy.
Right? I mean, and that's what, okay, sometimes with ultra-talented players, you will put up with that. Then there are good basketball players, all right, that you're not going to put up with as much because guess what? Your son is good, and he can be a little bit better. But, okay, Europe will be the end of the road for him. Because that's the way life works. That's why when Matt Painter talked the other day about Mike Woodson, and remember, he was asked the question. It wasn't like he sat there and volunteered it.
And what question was he asked?
He was asked, what should Indiana be looking for in a new head coach since Mike Woodson is resigning at the end of the year? And he said, look, he says, you got to support these people. He said, you got to give them some time. And basically, he has said what I've told you before. What have I told you about the Indiana basketball fan base? You've got a segment of it that's very unrealistic as to who they actually are. Okay? With all due respect, and I say this with complete respect, Branch McCracken and Bobby Knight are no longer with us. Right? Of course, I never, Branch McCracken, I never would have known. At least Knight I talked to enough. All right? And when Penn State got into the league, Indiana was like, wow, Indiana. They made the Final Four in 92. They were ranked number one when they came into this building in Rec Hall in 1993, the one that went double overtime. Okay. But from that point on, Indiana started to slip a little bit. And then I remember when they came into the Jordan Center in 96, and Penn State was the higher ranked team, and Penn State beat them by a pretty good margin that day. And Knight, to his credit, gave a lot of credit to Penn State, gave a lot of credit. Like Phil Williams didn't score any points. He said, but that's a screener. He loved really good screeners. But they kept like being good enough to make the tournament, but not go anywhere. Right? They're kind of like the Atlanta Hawks of college basketball. I mean, right? Good enough to be in, not good
enough to get in the dance,
right,
not to make it far in the dance.
Right. Then, of course, everything happened with Bob Knight, and then Mike Davis took over. Then Davis had that magical run. They got to the national championship game in Atlanta where Maryland beat them in the national championship game. I think they had Tom Coverdale there. Since 2002, where has Indiana basketball been?
It's been a couple years of like, we're dancing, and then...
Right. I mean, technically, the best coach they've had, right? But got them into a lot of trouble.
Mm-hmm.
And they cut bait, which is what they should have done, which was the correct move, was Kelvin Sampson.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Yeah.
Right? But everybody else, Tom Crean was okay. Mike Davis was okay. Archie Miller was okay. Mike Woodson was okay. I mean, this has been 23 years. How relevant have they actually been?
Since 2002, they have not made it beyond the Sweet 16.
Right. And they got to the Sweet 16, I think, in 2016, I think it was, right?
2016, 13, and 12. In 12, they lost to Kentucky. Yeah. In 13, they lost to Syracuse. And then 16 to North Carolina.
Okay. This is Nebraska football. Mm-hmm. Now, except more successful because you're getting into the NCAAs. Mm-hmm. But Nebraska football went 8 years before they went to a bowl game. Yep. And everybody kept trying to wish Nebraska football forward. Everybody kept trying to wish Nebraska football into a power again. Nebraska football is not a power any longer. Are they a good football program? Mm-hmm. Yes. Are they anything better than a good football program? No. Mm-hmm. Indiana, there's a segment of the Indiana fan base that has absolutely unrealistic expectations about who they are. Mm-hmm. They aren't even the best team in their own state. Mm-hmm. Okay?
Nope.
All right? Purdue has been. Mm-hmm. And there was a period of time Butler was.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And that's something that I always find interesting every time I go there. What they think they should be and what they are normally two different things. Yeah. Now, look, and I don't blame them for being spoiled during the Bob Knight days. They won 3 national championships. They were in Final Fours. Okay? I mean, through his pure sheer will and hard work, Bob Knight was able to get the talent and get them there. Mm-hmm. Okay? But it hasn't been like that anymore.
Nope.
Now, in NIL, we'll see what they do financially. But Matt Painter's deal was, he says, quit downing kids on social media. Mm-hmm. Quit. You give a coach a chance to do something. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time. Now, Purdue is sitting there with 2 coaches over the last 40 years between Matt and Gene Cady. All right. And essentially here at Penn State, what have we had? 3, 4 since 1950, 4 coaches. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're talking 75 years. 4 coaches. Yeah. Bill O'Brien was here 2 years. Mm-hmm. Everybody else has been here double digits. Mm-hmm. Rip Engel, Joe, James Franklin. Okay? Mm-hmm. James wins in September. James is going to go past Rip Engel and be the 2nd winningest coach in the history of Penn State football. Mm-hmm. Indiana's been running through guys trying to find the right guy. Well, who is the right guy? Right? Yeah. After a while, if you don't know who the mark in the room is,
it's you.
The mark might be you.
Yeah.
Right? And that's, again, Indiana basketball has been good. Mm-hmm. Okay?
Yeah.
Good. And believe me, as a guy who announces Penn State, I would like to have that as much good and get to tournaments over and over and over again. But they catch more breaks than anybody.
Yep.
Okay? And you can see it in the schedule. Mm-hmm. Who's on CBS usually 3 times a year on the CBS contract? Indiana basketball is. Mm-hmm. They were just on with Purdue, and they're going to be on this weekend too. Mm-hmm. Right? Penn State's the only team in the Big Ten to play 3 of its final 4 games on the road. When Penn State plays in Indiana tomorrow night, it'll be the final game of a 3-game homestand. Mm-hmm. Really? Really? It's a 3-game homestand. One team's playing 3 of its last 4 on the road, the only team in the conference to do that. That team's on a 3-game homestand? Really? Right? And they played a couple games at home before that and then went on the road once. Mm-hmm. Like, who put that schedule together?
I don't know.
Conference did. Mm-hmm. Right? They give them every break in the face of the earth, and it always bugs me when I see, like, why do they keep getting breaks all the time? Right? Again, this is not a short-term deal. This is a long-term 24 seasons. Okay? We're 23 seasons since they were in the national championship game. And essentially, if you go back, 32 years, that run's the only run they've had.
Yeah.
As opposed to the McCracken years, the Knight years, where they had a lot of long, sustained runs in the tournament where they were an absolute blue blood. Now, that's just how I look at them.
Yeah.
I didn't say they're bad. I didn't say they're mediocre. They're good.
And we are going to be there. We're flying out there, and we'll see that game tomorrow night, Indiana versus Penn State. And to wrap up real fast, going a little long here, which is okay, is the end of this Big Ten basketball season is on the horizon. Of course, next Saturday's game against Wisconsin or Penn State is going to wrap it up for the regular season. But right now, as things sit, pretty much, 10 teams have a chance of making it or not making it into the Big Ten tournament as things sit? Because you're sitting there with Penn State is currently sitting second to bottom of the Big Ten, 5-12. Indiana's sitting there.
Well, they got the big one. They got 7 wins now.
Yeah, they have 7 wins,
right.
But they have 10 teams above them, and they're sitting at 7-9.
People have asked me about tiebreakers. I said, guys, I have no idea. No. It's an 18-school league.
It is a rock fight at the bottom of the Big Ten.
This is how I think it's going to play out. Okay, I think 9 teams from the Big Ten will make the NCAA tournament. You're going to have 2 automatics that are going to go to the Crown in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
Okay, so now you're at 11. There are going to be a couple teams that won't be above 500 overall in the season, so they're going to be out. Okay? So now we've got it down to, 5? Among those 5, there may be a couple teams that might say no to the NIT. And there's going to be a couple teams that are going to be saying yes to the NIT, because the NIT is going to have, at minimum, 16 open bids. You may not be able to get to and you may not want to play in the NIT.
You might decline.
For example, Maryland last year, St. John's last year, they turned it down. So, people turn it down. It got to the point last year where I know Penn State was, 16-17 last year? And Xavier got in under 500 last year. The NIT did call Penn State last year as an inquiry if
a bid opened up.
If there's a bid, would you accept it? And Penn State said yes, they would last year. They may. I don't know what they would say this year about it, but you're going to have 116 schools make postseason play. 68 in the NCAAs, 32 in the NIT, and of course 16 for the Crown. Which will have 2 automatic bids, Big Ten, 2 automatic bids, Big 12, 2 automatic bids, Big East. And then everything else, the other 10, the other 2, you can select another Big Ten team if you want to go out there too. It's up to you. It's just going to be availability as to whether your people want to play in it or not. The Ken Palm rankings are one of the rankings where it figures into it. Well, right now, Penn State qualifies on all of them. There's 67. Right? Now, do I want Penn State to everything's the NCAA. It's all NCAA, NCAA,
That's
NCAA. If people have now asked me, if you had a choice between winning the NIT and playing in the NCAA, I said, look, I've broadcast now 2 NIT championships, 9 and 18. I said, I'd much rather lose the first round of the NCAA tournament than win the NIT. Because you want to be playing for the national championship.
You'd rather be in the big dance than not.
In other words, yes, would I be happy going hey, great, they're going to play in the Citrus Bowl. Okay, great. But after doing this run in the college football playoff, it's the place to be. The NCAA basketball tournament is the place to be. Okay? And that's why I really thought this team in the summertime, like the year before, I told I mean, how much more honesty do you want? I said, I don't know. I have no idea. I couldn't tell.
It was
couldn't tell.
New coaching staff here in State College. It was new players. It was new everything.
Yeah, but I'm watching the practices, and I got no feel for it. You know, there's a lot of teaching that needed to be done. There's some guys that came in with some bad habits. They couldn't break their habits. Like, because you not only inherit the player, you inherit their habits.
Yeah.
This past summer, I felt different about it. The only thing I was worried about is if they got hurt, could they withstand a major injury? Well, they've had 2. Well, 2? Well, you're talking about Ace. No, I'm not talking about Ace. I'm talking about Puff and Eli Rice. I saw Eli Rice practice in the summer. Eli Rice can play.
He was going to play a part of this team.
I had a long talk with Eli yesterday. Eli's doing way better right now.
Good.
Right? But I had a long talk with him yesterday. I wanted me to tell you hi. It didn't come up. But that's where you want to be. And I'm just explaining all this to everybody now, just as a primer as to how it's supposed to work, because all the automatic bids in the NIT thing are now out. I think the power conferences do get
they get a bid.
2 spots, I think.
Yeah.
They get 2 spots each. They get 2 spots each. And if you're a conference champion inside the 125, you get an automatic bid.
Yeah.
So again, sit.
And for Penn State men's basketball, to wrap up real fast, they have the game coming up tomorrow in Indiana.
Yeah.
They then are home in the BJC on Saturday against Maryland.
You know what's interesting? Indiana's coming off a great win for them, and it was a great win. That second half, they played incredible defense. All right. And Purdue scored 3 points in the opening 9.5 minutes of the second half. I mean, that's incredible. But you know what? Suddenly the heat's on them. They're at home. They actually need to win.
Yeah.
They lost to Penn State, would not help them.
And last year, Penn State came into this building.
Oh, they won.
And won.
They won.
We were there. It's quite fun to watch.
Right. You know, I think he'll probably do the same thing. It's interesting. Mbako only played 9 minutes the other day. I was surprised by that. And I know he's in a shooting slump. He's only hit 4 of his last 25 threes. I don't do any research. And what?
I know.
And so he only played 9 minutes. I was like, I mean, Leal's the one garnering minutes. I mean, he's a Bloomington kid. They love him. It's like, and he plays hard.
Yeah. We'll see. It'll be a fun one. We'll be in Bloomington tomorrow for that, and we'll be back on these airwaves officially live on Thursday.
Thank you for listening to Sports Talk with Steve Jones, a 7 Mountain Media production. Come back at 11 every weekday for analysis of the latest happening in the sports landscape. From college football to European soccer, Steve and Kyle cover it all on Sports Talk